from an educational standpoint, I do want to say, I understand in early next year, the Space Launch System will announce some opportunities for universities, and it will be issued through Inspires. It will have part, I think they said the advanced rockets area, but they told me early next year, so I'll say keep your eyes open for it. And is Keith Collins here? I don't see him here, huh? Mabel told me I couldn't. I brought you some lanyards that say we have friends in high places. we have, you know, the station people up there all the time. So I just wanted to share those for you. You've probably seen, as well as some pins on the International Space Station, because we do have friends in higher places, and we got to remember, we got to create our next generation of leaders so we can keep it going. So thank you. The future is bright. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Teresa Schwerin, and I'm not going to start or finish with quite the panache of that, but it's a hard act to follow. But I'm pinch hitting today for Steph Stockman, who is a lead for the Science Mission Directorate Education Program. I am the lead for what's called the Earth Science Education and Public Outreach Forum. And over the next about 10 minutes, I'm just going to talk through what the general landscape is for NASA's Science Mission Directorate Education Program, some things that are ongoing and planned, and maybe point out some connections I think that will be relevant to this group. As this illustration shows, the scope of the Science Mission Directorate is scientific exploration of our integrated Earth system, our sun, the solar system, and the universe, so very broad scope. And to give you a sense of the landscape within the Science Mission Directorate, Steph Stockman, as I mentioned, is the overall lead for SMD education, and Jim Lochner is her technical officer. There is a substantial connection between SMD and the NASA Office of Education, and as part of Steph's role and Jim's role, they work very hard to align the SMD education program and coordinate it within the broader NASA education framework, and to coordinate with the Office of Education and the broader education community. Under the umbrella of SMD EPO, there are 4 science divisions. There's Earth Science, Heliophysics, Planetary and Astrophysics, and each of those divisions has their own EPO lead. It's important to point out they don't spend all of their time on education. Probably about 10 to 20% is typical, so a very small part of their time is spent on education. Associated with each of these divisions are what are called science, education, and public outreach forums, that we just call forums. And the forums were competitively selected in FY 2010, and they are 5-year cooperative agreements. I'm with the Earth Science Forum. You can see there's one with each division. There's a Heliophysics Forum, Planetary Forum, and Astrophysics Forum. And what's important to point out, we're working not just with NASA, but across the forums and with our broad communities. And while the forums, none of them are located at a center, each of the forums represent a team of educators and scientists and organizations that are partners. So, for example, with the Earth Forum, my team includes Goddard Space Flight Center. It also includes University Space Research Association, people from that organization. And, for example, the Planetary Forum includes JPL on their team, as well as McCrell. So each forum has a broad range of partners and members working on their team. When I say we work with our communities, I mean all of those people are funded to do SMD education. And currently we count over 500 individuals who we count as part of our communities. So another thing to point out, the forums, we work very closely together in order to leverage our experiences. And I'm having trouble doing I'm going back and forth between the two technology. I should have done the low-tech paper technology. But in that way, to coordinate and to do things in a consistent manner. It also helps us to leverage our experience across the forums. We have a coordinating committee that includes the division leads, each of the forum leads, our working group leads, as well as our headquarters counterparts. And just to point out, under cross-forum up here we've got working groups. These are audience-based working groups. There are 4 of those. And their purpose is to give us the perspective of the audiences that we serve. And I'll talk a little bit more about those later. We also have what we call implementation teams, and those are cross-forum efforts for doing things like looking at social media, for doing professional development. What kinds of webinars and professional development experiences can we provide for our community? For example, over the past year, we did a series of webinars on social media and how to determine that it's effective. A lot of our missions are using Facebook, Twitter, and they have a lot of expertise they can share with each other, but also expertise in terms of what's the return on investment in doing that. We also had webinars on how to make your website 508 compliant, how to make a PDF 508 compliant, how to get your data into OEPM. So a really wide range of webinars that our community has said that they've wanted that we've provided for them. We're also looking at how do we organize our portfolio to make it the best way accessible for our audiences. It started with looking at our K-12 education activities, and we've gone through and done an analysis looking at aligning to AAAS benchmarks, looking at things like what kinds of assessments are used, what kinds of instructional strategies are used, how can we best organize these for our communities. And we've gone through 1,000 individual education activities, classroom activities that we've done an analysis for and that we will have available online for people to search and find activities. Just to talk in general about how education is organized before I get to that, just to give some specific examples. When we talk about the forums and they do coordinating and leveraging, just to get it down to some concrete examples so you can understand the kind of work we do. One of the big areas is in community engagement and development. And by that, we refer to our current community. How do we go from those 500 plus individuals to a community and a real community of practice where we're working together and leveraging what we're doing? And how do we build pathways into that community for more broader participation and more diverse participation? So some of the things there, we do monthly tag-ups. We have an annual community retreat. We have e-news that we send out within our community. We have a community workspace where people can share documents. They can have threaded discussions. We have a shared calendar, that kind of thing. And the way that SMD in general, that it's funded, this chart shows the main elements of the education program. And one of the hallmarks that really distinguishes the Science Mission Directorate is that education is an integral part of the science program. And it includes a lot of pathways for our scientists to be involved in EPO. So the 4 main ways, at the top there is a mission EPO, and every flight mission, satellite or flight aircraft mission, is embedded within it an EPO component. And a lead who works very closely with that science team on education. Beginning in FY 2010, there was a formal policy put in place that set a funding target for our mission education, and that's 1% of the total mission budget, excluding the launch vehicle, should be devoted to education. And it's a really important thing because it set in place a policy that any variance from that has to be signed off at the AA level. So it's very serious that money be protected and not be the first place people look to cut funding if something should get cut. The other ways that our projects are funded are through granted programs like the EPOS, Request for Proposals. EPOS is Education and Public Outreach in Earth and Space Sciences. It's an annual solicitation. It's very competitive, and projects can propose to that for projects that are 1 to 3 years and in the hundreds of K funding. The next one will be out in the May time frame, and those cover the broad range of EPO, the whole pipeline. So people can propose under any of those projects related to the whole pipeline of NASA EPO. The other way to the right there, the roses, research supplements. People who have funding to do science research, they can apply for an additional amount of money to do an education or an outreach project. And there are two opportunities for them to propose. They can propose in the May timeframe and then early in the year, usually in the January, February timeframe. So the scientists can put together a short proposal. It's about 10K, 15K a year for education, 10K for outreach to do educational projects. Usually they tend to be local efforts. They can also band together and put together projects across missions, so up to, I think it's 50K, so they can do things that are a little bit larger through that funding mechanism. Also, I wanted to note that with our mission EPO, one thing I forgot to note is we really encourage them to work collaboratively and also to leverage what they're doing. So it's not just an individual project related to a mission, but it's collaborative. So for example, one of our projects in the astrophysics, several of the missions banded together to do a course for teachers on the electromagnetic spectrum, so they're able to leverage that. And just to give you the scope, when we're talking about education in SMD, the whole range, formal education, K-12 and higher, informal education, so learning outside of the classroom, and public outreach. If you'd like to learn more about what these individual activities are, a couple of websites to go to. smdeponews.org is an ongoing blog and an email listserv of our educational activities. smdepo.org is our forum website. On the public part of it, there are lots and lots of documents and information and news, so you can find out about when funding opportunities come up. Like me to wrap. So I'm going to wrap up and stop there, but just to leave you with, these are a couple of resources where you can go to find out about very specific activities coming out of the Science Mission Directorate.
I'm Harry Partridge, and hopefully my slides will come up here in just a second. I'm with the Office of Chief Technologist, and I'm in with a group called Space Technology Programs, which is in the Office of Chief Technologist. And the Office of Chief Technologist is a fairly new organization. I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit on the next slides. But the basic idea was to pursue revolutionary technologies, breakthrough technologies for NASA. Whole bunch of external reports came out in the last few years saying that essentially NASA became more short-term focused on its mission needs, and that in order to really accomplish the missions it needed to look out further to invest in its seed corn. And so that was the basic idea of forming the Office of Chief Technologist. And the conclusion is that we exist. We're now operational. It went a little slower than many of us had hoped. Bobby Brown, Professor Brown from Georgia Tech, was named as the Chief Technologist of NASA in February of 2010. I joined the office in March of 2010. It was a fairly small group at the time, and we grew steadily. In the fall of 2010, we got our authorization, so we officially existed. And with an operation plan change in August of 2011, we actually had money. And so we were actually able to start operating. We made a large number of successes, I think, given how late in the year that we got funding. The programs have rolled out. We made some competitive selections. Because of the lateness of the year, there was also a number of guided projects. In 2012, OCT is funded, and we're in the process now of allocating the funding for 2012 and getting the programs going. So it's really exciting to see the programs develop as they roll out and get started, and we're quite excited. So some of the progress that we made in 2011. We initiated a research fellowship, Space Technology Research Fellows. These are graduate students, either the master's or PhD level. They're funded for 2 years at the master's level, up to 4 years at the PhD level. We select the student, so we're not really selecting a project. They write a plan. It's targeted for really for undergraduates going into graduate school, and the new call is out. Graduate students in their first 2 years can apply. But it's really meant for those younger students that are entering graduate school to encourage them. It's fairly generous program. It's competitive with most of the other fellowship programs that are out there, and it includes a summer research program either at one of the NASA centers or at a nonprofit lab. The students are given both a NASA mentor as well as their advisor at school, at the school of their choice. And so I think it's a very positive program. It was one of the first programs that we rolled out, and we were quite pleased with it. We made 80 awards last year. The call is out now. The application process is very similar to what you would write to apply for graduate school. And I think those applications are due relatively soon. We're hoping to make a substantial number of awards again this year. We've also initiated the NIAC program. It existed before. It's for the revolutionary ideas for things that are 10 or more years out. It's open now to NASA centers, which is different than it was before, so it's now managed by NASA. But the process is very similar to the original NIAC. It's looking for new ways of doing business, new ways of tackling things. We made a large number of Phase 1 awards. We expect this year to offer more Phase 1 awards and also extend it with the Phase 2 awards. There's the Flight Opportunities Program, which is looking at suborbital launch. We're trying to make launch things available so people can test technologies. There are some more additional solicitations coming out in that area in the next couple of months that I think will be also quite interesting to spur universities and industry into testing things in space environment. The Game Changing Technology Office originally was conceived as being a DARPA-like organization. It was set up that way. It's sort of changing as the rollout goes on. It encompasses right now what was the ETD, the Exploration Technology Office, and it's got a unique and innovative BAA, and they've made some awards out of that, and there will be some more solicitations in that next year. And then the TDMs, technologies are our big flight missions. 3 awards were made in FY11, the last year, and I'll come back and show you a little bit about what those are in just a minute. So the approach that space technology is using, we created a set of grand challenges that we want to look at. I'll show those briefly. I'm not going to have time to talk about them. We developed a set of technology roadmaps. Those are being reviewed by the NRC. They look at the technologies that NASA needs for the future. It's an agency-wide technology roadmap. It does not include aeronautics at the moment because the NRC had already reviewed aeronautics, so that one was not re-reviewed. So most of the times when people point to them, it's the 14 technology areas, which does not include the aeronautics roadmap. The NRC has given us their interim report. They're supposed to give us their final report in January. The roadmaps will be updated in response to their NRC comments. They will be periodically updated in the future after that, and there will be mechanisms for people to comment on roadmaps as we go forward. These roadmaps and the grand challenges will be used in helping us define our portfolios. So we encourage input into these technology, into the roadmaps, into the grand challenges that we can go forward. Some of the things we're doing that are a little different than the way NASA does, has typically done, is we're a very projectized type approach. For technology development, it means they have finite start and end dates, fixed budgets. We're trying to accelerate technology development. Our goal was to be 70% completed, at least within that first 5 years. Given the way our funding profile rolled out, I think probably not many we're going to meet that right off the bat at least, but hopefully we'll move in that direction shortly. The overarching goals are technical rigor, pushing the boundaries. We're willing to take informed risk. It is not that we want to fail. We want to try new things. We want to learn from what we do, and so insisting on publications, on IP, the transitions of the technologies to somebody, either industry or another NASA mission, are critical for evaluation of our projects. We want to also foster the emerging commercial space industry. So this is just the space technology challenges. They expand human presence in space, manage in space resources, and enable transformation of space exploration and scientific discovery. These are the roadmaps. They're available on the web. They are published. I mean, they're available on the web. They're being reviewed. Input into these is always welcome. So I'll talk a little bit now about early stage innovation, and then I'll close with this slide. I have more slides. Maybe I'll do one more after this one. But this just goes back and talks about a little bit about what we did this year. We did the 80 fellows. I think I've said most of that. The Centennial Challenges. We've had a couple of competitions this year. One, the Green Flight Challenge was extremely successful. We're investing a little bit in Center Innovation Funds so that we can foster innovation within the NASA research centers. And the SBIR program is a portion of the Office of Chief Technologist. This just shows a little bit about the students that are there. Sorry, I flipped through that, and I'll skip this one also. The ETD projects are a part of both Game Changing and TDM, and just show you a little bit about the range of them. It covers a whole host of technologies that NASA is interested in. And then the focus, what we call as our Big Nine. These are our main priorities. These have been funded. Some of them were accelerated projects, so they got accelerated funding in FY10. And these have our priorities. So these are the ones that we're really tracking. These are the ones we want to finish. And these are the ones that sort of dominate our budget. Several of them are quite interesting. 3 of them were the TDM selections, which were the laser communications, the deep space, the clock, and the solar sail were the TDM selections from last year. HIAD, SIAD, composite cryotank, a couple of the others were some of our accelerated projects from starting in FY10. The human robotic systems, we've substantially expanded that project this year. In addition, we're jointly funding a call that's been released by the National Science Foundation on co-robotics, or robotics and humans interacting together. And those proposals are due in the next couple of months. And so we're hoping to be able to fund several of those. And I'll stop there.
Obviously, we had a little technical difficulty at the start, so I just want to give Tony a chance to offer any other observations or comments that he might choose to make that he might have forgotten or didn't get a chance to talk about on the first
I think most everything is online. There are another couple of other items we have, such as the design competitions, but no, that's
okay, great. We have an opportunity for 1 or 2 questions, and I just want to, first of all, commend all of you on the incredible work that you're doing, and say to you as constructive criticism that as a person outside the agency who works in the field of education, I think many of the innovations that you are working on are both exciting, but also probably not known to the general public in a layperson's language. So I want to ask you, and I love this phrase that you had, disruptive innovation. That's really quite nice. So let me just ask you very quickly, have you constructed a process and a programmatic effort to reach out into the general public, and in particular into classroom settings where you share some of the interesting and exciting work that you're doing with school children, both to incentivize them, but also so that they can help their parents understand that as you deal with these, here's another phrase from the presentation, volatile budgets, that you might have a political constituency that can help you with that? Anyone?
Well, there are a number of education programs that you're trying to integrate the NASA technologies and the NASA topics into the classroom at the various levels. One of those that aeronautics has is the design competitions, which will be announced later this year, early next year, at the high school and the college level. And then most of the curriculums, I believe, across all the mission directors, or actually across NASA, are NASA unique items. Because NASA's doing the science, NASA's doing the space flight, and NASA's doing the aeronautics. So those technologies and those topics are what our content and our materials highlight.
For the science mission, it says it's on, but I couldn't. We have hundreds of activities, and they specifically are selected based on meeting audience need. And in particular, I'm thinking of programs like My NASA Data, which provides access for students to microsets of NASA data that they can get at the quantitative data, but also provides lesson plans and activities. So they work with teachers to make them familiar with how to use these materials in K-12 curriculum. So standards-based, relevant materials for the classroom.
From Human Exploration Operations Mission Directorate, we work very closely with the centers who we look to get out in the communities as much as possible and share this information. But I would definitely say we need to do more, and we look probably to the future to doing more as our resources will allow us. But that's even more important why we need partners. So we look to partner with you in helping to get this information out to our students and our parents.
Questions or comments from the floor? Okay, well then in that case we're pretty much on schedule. So let's thank our panel once again and have our second speaker.
And thank you.
Larry Williams is here with us. Great. Obviously, one of the key phrases that we hear over and over again, and it's become increasingly important in terms of resource considerations, is our partnership with the private sector. So this next session is an opportunity for us to get a sense of where we might want to be going in that regard. Larry's going to share with us some of his observations and perspectives. And again, we're thinking forward here. We're trying to conceptualize ways in which we can get more facile and effective cooperative partnerships and relationships that benefit both NASA, the corporate sector, and the general society. Larry Williams.